Hi everyone, thank you for joining my session today. I'm really looking forward to talking through the importance of real-time data analytics and explaining how you can leverage the Amazon Kinesis product family to achieve your data streaming goals. So a little background about myself before I dive right into it. I'm Olivia Carline, an Associate Solutions Architect here at AWS. I initially joined AWS a few years ago, working as an intern out of the Wellington office, and then after completing my degree, I returned back to complete the TechU graduate program, which is a really fun initiative that basically provides an accelerated pathway into technical roles here at AWS. After completing the graduate program last year, I moved into my current role where I now work in the public sector solutions architecture team. So that was a little bit of an aside, but if anyone is interested in learning more about opportunities for students here at AWS, please feel free to reach out directly or message me and I'll be happy to answer your questions. But yeah, as the title says, why I'm really here today is to actually talk through, why real-time streaming data is important, and then explaining some of the services you can leverage on AWS to get started. So without further ado, let's take a look at the agenda. So we're going to begin by talking through the common streaming data processing pipeline and what that looks like. Next, we're going to dive into 3 out of the 4 Amazon Kinesis products that can be leveraged to achieve your data streaming goals. And I'll close up with a really quick introduction on some resources you can go to if you're interested in getting more hands-on with Kinesis. So we do only have a limited amount of time for today's session. So the services that I'll be talking through will be at a really high level. So we won't be going too technical or going into any of the features or into too many details. But I would like to start by going through what the pipeline looks like when it comes to your streaming data. As the illustration shows, there are 5 core stages to understand when it comes to your analytics pipeline. And as you'd expect, we do start with the source. This is where your data is coming from. And typically it can be things like your IoT devices, or if your server is generating logs or application logs that you'd like to analyze and monitor. But we also have stuff such as, clickstream data on a website that are also really great use cases for your real-time analytics. Once we've got our source data, the next thing we have to do is to actually start ingesting it. And then so it's really important here, because of the way that real-time data is, you don't really necessarily have insight into the volume or the velocity at all times. So it is important that your ingestion of this data is able to actually scale out and be able to meet the demands as your needs change. Once you have your data being ingested, the next step is to actually temporarily store it, and you do that for a limited period of time before you start to really get to the good stuff of this pipeline, which is the actual processing of it. So this commonly looks like your real-time transformations, if you want to edit your data, or if you want to perform real-time analytics on your data right away, this would occur in this processing stage. And this all happens before you actually have your data being sent out to your final destination. And this typically includes stuff like your data lake or your data warehouse. And all of these stages that we've got up here can actually be configured and enhanced by leveraging the Kinesis suite of services. So we do have, within Kinesis, we have 3 core services for your data streaming, but we also have a 4th one for processing your video streams. And although we won't be covering Amazon Kinesis video streams in any real detail in this talk, I do want to quickly mention that it exists and it allows for you to stream and analyze your video and your audio data in real time. But the first data streaming service that I'll be talking through is Amazon Kinesis Data Streams, and this allows you to collect and process your data records in real time. This is followed by Amazon Kinesis Data Firehose, which provides a really simple approach to capture, transform, and then load your data into data lakes or data stores. And then finally, we have Amazon Kinesis Data Analytics, And this allows you to process your data streams in real time through either SQL or Apache Flink. Let's have a closer look at Kinesis data streams. So this service makes it really easy to reliably ingest and then store your streaming data. And it's great if you're going to be using any custom applications to process your streaming data. And one of the main benefits that comes from leveraging Kinesis data stream is the fact that your streaming data is actually available to any consumers or to any analytics applications that you've built within 70 milliseconds of your data being collected. And this is really great because when you are dealing with streaming data, the benefit really comes from being able to access it as quickly as possible. And this value diminishes the longer it takes to get access to it. But another key benefit of leveraging Kinesis data streams is the durability that you get. And because your streaming data is synchronously replicated across 3 availability zones within one AWS region, as well as having the option to actually store your streaming data within this data stream for up to 7 days, you do get quite a lot of comfort knowing there are multiple layers of protection against data loss. But if we just have a look at this diagram that we've got up on the slide, you can see that we have really 3 key stages. So we've got actually the data producers coming in, so that's the source of our data. And then we actually have the actual Kinesis data stream. And the great thing with Kinesis data streams is the fact that Amazon does manage the hardware and the that's required to actually configure this. And so through this approach, you can actually dynamically scale out your data streams very, very quickly based on the volume and velocity of the data that you're seeing. And this can really be easily achieved just by adjusting the throughput of the stream based on the volume that you're expecting. But then once the data is actually in the Kinesis data stream, the final step is to actually have your consumers actually accessing this data. And we do have a whole suite of different services as well as third-party tool integration that I'll talk through in a later slide that explains the various options. But let's start with actually ingesting the data. So with Kinesis data streams, we can have data from tens of thousands of different data sources, all being written to the same stream. So we do have a number of different tools and utilities that are available to make this process a lot easier. And we typically break this up into 3 different categories. So if we start with the toolkits and the libraries available, this includes stuff such as the Amazon Kinesis Data Streams API, as well as the Kinesis Producer Library. And this provides a really simple interface to actually package up multiple messages and then compress your data when you're sending it to your stream. But we also have the Kinesis Agent, which is a pre-built Java application that you can install on your servers. And what this does is it will monitor certain files and continuously stream that data to your stream. But we also have different AWS service integration. So you can have such as AWS IoT, which is great if you're dealing with a smart city workload, but you can also have Amazon CloudWatch. And so if you want to have, this event data that you're monitoring being pushed through in real time to analyze, we do make it really easy to kind of set up and configure. But alongside that, we do have third-party offerings that are available. So a few that I want to call out here include Log4j, we've got Flume, and we have FluentD. And these provide some adapters to connect to your Kinesis stream and make it really easy to actually get the data being pushed through. Similarly, when it comes to your actual processing and your consumption of the data, we do have quite a few different options that you can choose from. And like I mentioned, the great thing is this data will be available to your consumers within milliseconds, and it will arrive in the order that they were generated. So this enables you to actually get started building out these real-time analytics and really start getting insights from your data very quickly. So once again, we can break the data consumers down into 3 different categories. And if we start by looking at the various tools and services that are available within the Kinesis product family, we can actually start by having we can start by using Kinesis Data Firehose. And what this looks like is we can have our Kinesis data stream being a source, going to a Kinesis Data Firehose, and then connecting that up to S3 or to Redshift if we want a permanent data storage solution. Similarly, we can connect our Kinesis data stream to have it going into Kinesis data analytics application. And this will enable us to start getting, really actionable insights very, very quickly. And I'll talk through both of these services later on in more detail. But like we did with the producers, there are a number of different libraries that are available that you can leverage. This includes the Kinesis client library as well as the Kinesis connector library, and this actually provides a very simple mechanism for integrating with other AWS services and third-party tools. But there is also the option to just connect very directly with AWS services, and in particular we have AWS Lambda. And what the common approach to do with Lambda is to actually have these Lambda functions subscribe to your Kinesis data stream, and these will automatically read records from the stream and then process or perform event-based processing of your data. But if you prefer, there are also third-party tools that are available. So the most popular of these is Apache Spark, and that allows you to utilize Spark streaming off of the Kinesis stream. But we also have a range of other tools such as Datadog or Splunk that allow you to just pull off the data from the stream directly and process it. So the next service that I want to talk through is Amazon Kinesis Data Firehose. And this is a fully managed service, so it automatically provisions, manages, and scales out the resources required to do this processing and this ingestion and loading of your data. And it is actually one of the easiest ways to load your streaming data into data lakes or into data warehouses on AWS. Through Firehose, you can actually capture, transform, and then load your data into Amazon S3, Amazon Redshift, or Amazon Elasticsearch Service, as well as integrating it into Splunk. And this allows you to develop near real-time analytics applications. So if we look through in more detail what this pipeline actually looks like, we do have three main steps that we need to go through. So we have ingesting the data, transforming it, and then delivering it. So just like with Kinesis data streams, there are actually quite a few different options you can configure as your data source for your Firehose. So you can choose to have your data being pushed directly from the source, whether that's application logs on a server or if that's an IoT device. You can have it configured to go directly into your Firehose stream. But like I mentioned, there is the option to actually chain these services together. So to start with a Kinesis data stream, and with this approach, you would have your analytics occurring in real time from the data stream if you needed insight very quickly. But then you'd also have the data going into your Firehose to be delivered into your data lake to perform further analytics, on a longer term scale. But once you've actually got the data inside this Firehose, the next step is really to transform it. And there are a couple of different transformations that you can achieve, and they're all really done through Lambda functions. So a common transformation that we do see is people will transform the data format that they're dealing with. And this is great, for an example, if you're leveraging Apache logs, and these all come in a row-based format. And let's say we actually want to convert it into a Parquet columnar format. We can do this through Kinesis Firehose without having to set up a separate ETL pipeline to achieve this. And through this, we can actually get really good performance from our analytics application by using this new format. And through this, we no longer need to spin up an EMR cluster or build out any glue jobs to execute these transformations. They are all done in a very simple process as this data is being collected and being processed before being moved into the next data store. And this data store is a final stage in this pipeline. So like I mentioned, there are 4 destinations. So you've got Amazon S3, which is great if you're building out with a data lake solution. But otherwise, you can use Amazon Redshift for your data warehousing solution. or Amazon Elasticsearch Service. You can have that being configured and then start doing analytics through that. Or we do have a third-party integration where you can push your data into a Splunk instance before going into the next phase. But this approach in this diagram does look a little bit similar to the Kinesis data streams. And this is a common question that customers raise is, what is the difference and when should you use which service? So I do like to include this slide just to really kind of give a better explanation of, the differences between the two services. So if we start with Kinesis data streams, this is really great if your workloads require custom processing. It's also super important if you're going to require sub-second latency that you go through Amazon Kinesis data streams. But just bear in mind the fact that this service does require some manual scaling and provisioning as your data input and your data volume grows. On the other hand, we have Kinesis Firehose, and this is really a great solution if you prefer zero administration. So if you want everything to be taken care of for you, Firehose is a great service to leverage. Critically though, your workload has to be okay to have a data latency of 60 seconds or higher. And then finally, the third service that I want to talk through is Amazon Kinesis Data Analytics. And so with Kinesis Data Analytics, you can actually tap into these data streams or these fire hoses and query this data in real time. And so this can be done through either SQL queries or through Apache Flink applications. And the great thing is, you've got these built-in templates and various operators that you can leverage to actually organize, transform, and then analyze your data at any scale as it grows. And the cool thing with it is because you process your streaming data with sub-second latencies, you're able to analyze and respond to your incoming data in real time. So you're still getting the access and the insights to your data as quickly as possible. The other benefit that comes from leveraging Kinesis Data Analytics is the fact that everything that's required to run this application is taken care of for you. So these services will scale automatically to match the volume and throughput of your data, so you can focus on getting the insights from your data rather than the administration tasks required. So if we look into it in a little bit more detail, there really are 3 steps that are required. So like you'd expect, we've got to define your input, then we have the actual building of your application code, followed by the configuring of your output. So the very first thing is to define your source input. This is either your Kinesis data stream or your Kinesis data firehose that you want to start analyzing in real time. And all you have to do in this stage is simply point to this stream or this firehose, and then Kinesis Analytics will actually automatically read this data and then it'll make it available for processing as soon as it's ready. And then the next stage, and really the main component of this, is the actual analyzing of your data. This can either be achieved through Apache Flink operators or through SQL statements. So if you go through the Apache Flink approach, you do get access to more than 25 pre-built stream processing operators. This is stuff like Windows and Aggregate. And if you go through Apache Flink, you can actually start to build out some really sophisticated real-time analytics applications quite quickly. Alternatively, there is the approach to go through SQL. And with this, you can perform quite interactive analytics. So you can perform joins, aggregations over time, you've got filters in Windows, and a couple of other different features that you can leverage. And with SQL, these steps can actually be chained together, either in serial or in parallel. And again, all of this can occur within a second, just depending on how in-depth these queries are and the type of aggregates you're performing. But then the very last stage in this pipeline is to define your output. So you can either have your process results going through a Firehose again and then being sent off to Amazon S3 or to Redshift for their permanent storage, or you can choose to go through Kinesis data streams in order to build out a more advanced processing pipeline. But that's really it. They're very simple to get started, and if you are interested in learning more, we have quite a lot of resources that are available online. There's a large amount of content through the AWS website, as well as third-party training providers and through our partners. This includes stuff like case studies or webinars, and many blog posts and technical documentation is available. We also have the AWS streaming data solution that's available if you want something pre-configured to kind of go through this process when you're just starting off. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for listening. I really appreciate your time coming here today. And I'll now do a very quick Q&A if anyone has any burning questions they want answered. Thank you.